Hollywood has always relied on perfect images, polished smiles, carefully managed narratives, and stars presented as larger-than-life figures the audience was meant to admire. But behind those manufactured facades were hidden tempers, private scandals, manipulative behavior, and patterns of mistreatment that studios quietly ignored for years. Some of these figures built entire careers on charm, while others shaped public personas that masked calculated control, deception, or cruelty. The deeper question is not just who fell from grace, but why the truth stayed buried for so long, and what finally made it impossible to hide. As we uncover the stories behind these reputations, consider which public images feel the most constructed, and which revelations you believe carried the most impact. Before the countdown begins, comment which celebrity you think Hollywood tried the hardest to protect and why. 25. Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen DeGeneres built her public identity around kindness, generosity, and approachability. Her talk show promoted uplifting messages, surprise giveaways, and emotional reunions that reinforced the image of a host who valued empathy above all. For years, she symbolized a safe and comforting presence in daytime entertainment, and audiences connected with the idea of a performer who appeared authentic, humorous, and relatable. Her brand depended heavily on the belief that she treated people with respect, both on and off screen, making her one of the most trusted figures in modern television. Away from that public image, former employees and guests began describing a controlled environment marked by fear, inconsistent treatment, and uncomfortable power dynamics. Reports circulated of abrupt behavior, behind-the-scenes tension, and a workplace atmosphere that differed sharply from the message promoted on air. While some defended her, others noted that the gap between the public persona and private conduct had existed for years, but was rarely acknowledged openly. The truth gained visibility when multiple staff members spoke publicly about their experiences, prompting further accounts and media scrutiny. As these stories multiplied, the contrast between her curated image and the allegations became impossible to ignore. The shift in public perception was immediate, with many feeling misled by the persona they once embraced. The disconnect between who she presented herself to be and what emerged from behind the scenes led to widespread disappointment and deep criticism that still follows her today. 24. Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett was known for portraying sincerity, vulnerability, and determination, both in his roles and in his public life. He cultivated the image of a socially conscious performer, committed to justice, equality, and inclusivity. Supporters saw him as a rising figure who used his platform responsibly, and his presence on a successful television series further elevated his reputation as someone grounded, principled, and trustworthy. His career seemed poised for steady growth, with a loyal audience behind him. The narrative changed when authorities alleged that he staged a hate-related incident involving himself. This claim sharply contrasted with the values he publicly championed. The situation raised questions about motives, credibility, and the extent to which personal struggles may have influenced the decisions behind the scenes. What had appeared to be a straightforward account became increasingly complicated as investigators and public officials presented differing interpretations of the event. Public reaction shifted dramatically when legal proceedings unfolded, and officials released detailed statements challenging his version of events. Many who had once supported him felt confused or betrayed as the case grew more complex. The perception that he manipulated public trust damaged his standing significantly. Even after the legal process concluded, the controversy overshadowed his earlier achievements, leaving behind a legacy defined by doubt and lingering mistrust. 23. Lea Michele. Lea Michele established herself as a disciplined performer with a strong work ethic and an image built on professionalism and ambition. Her roles often highlighted precision, determination, and intensity, creating a persona of a dedicated artist who demanded excellence. To many viewers, she represented the driven lead capable of delivering emotional depth on stage and screen. Her public presence aligned with this image, portraying someone deeply committed to the craft of performance. However, former colleagues later shared concerns about her behavior during earlier projects, describing experiences that diverged from the polished public persona. Accounts suggested patterns of dismissiveness, harsh interactions, and conduct that created discomfort on set. These reports painted a different picture from the disciplined, inspiring leader audiences believed they knew. While interpretations of events varied, the gap between public perception and internal accounts sparked widespread debate about responsibility and influence within ensemble environments. The shift in public sentiment intensified when several performers openly discussed their experiences on social platforms. Their statements gained rapid attention, prompting fans and media to re-examine her interactions across multiple productions. As the conversation expanded, the contrast between her public persona and the allegations became central to the discussion. The resulting backlash altered her reputation, with many expressing disappointment at the possibility that her success had been accompanied by behavior that made others feel marginalized or disrespected. 22. James Corden. James Corden rose to prominence as a cheerful, energetic host who projected warmth, spontaneity, and lighthearted humor. His public identity centered on approachability, with segments built around singing in cars, surprising celebrity guests, and fostering relaxed conversations. Viewers saw him as a figure who valued friendliness, inclusivity, and entertainment without friction. This image helped him build a global audience who believed he treated people with ease and goodwill. Behind this image, accounts from restaurant staff, colleagues, and individuals who interacted with him privately suggested behavior that differed markedly from his on-screen charm. Reports described demanding conduct, dismissive exchanges, and incidents that left some feeling disrespected. While interpretations varied, the cumulative effect created questions about the consistency between his polished persona and his interactions when cameras were not rolling. The contrast led many to reassess the authenticity of the public image he had carefully cultivated. The turning point came when several hospitality workers publicly shared detailed descriptions of tense encounters. Their stories spread widely, igniting conversations about entitlement and professional expectations. As more incidents circulated online, viewers began to reinterpret earlier moments from his career through a more skeptical lens. The perception that he acted differently in private than in public eroded trust, making him one of the more polarizing figures in entertainment and overshadowing his previously favorable reputation. 21. Armie Hammer. Armie Hammer built his early career on a polished, charismatic persona, shaped around sophistication, measured confidence, and a traditional leading man appeal. His performances conveyed restraint and refinement, and interviews reinforced the image of someone thoughtful, educated, and grounded. For many, he represented a modern interpretation of classic Hollywood charm, and his early career trajectory suggested long-term stability and positive public reception. This image collapsed when troubling allegations surfaced regarding his personal relationships and private communications. Accounts shared by multiple individuals described behavior that was at odds with the composed, dignified persona he presented publicly. These claims sparked widespread concern, prompting scrutiny of power imbalances, personal boundaries, and undisclosed aspects of his private life. As more stories emerged, the gap between the cultivated public figure and the allegations grew increasingly pronounced. The situation escalated when messages attributed to him circulated online, drawing intense media attention and public debate. Subsequent interviews, statements from those involved, and investigations contributed to a broader re-examination of his public identity. Though responses to the controversy varied, the cumulative effect severely damaged his reputation. Many viewers expressed discomfort and distrust, leading to a sharp decline in public support and transforming him into one of the industry's most widely criticized figures. 20. Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase became known for portraying comedic confidence, effortless wit, and the persona of a charismatic leading comedian. His roles in classic comedies positioned him as a central figure in ensemble humor, and audiences viewed him as a naturally gifted performer whose sharp timing elevated every project. For years, he maintained the reputation of a beloved comedic icon tied to nostalgia and mainstream entertainment. Behind that reputation were long-standing accounts from colleagues describing difficult working conditions, unpredictable outbursts, and strained relationships. Writers, cast members, and collaborators from various eras recounted interactions that did not align with the approachable comedic image he showed on screen. Some described his behavior as abrasive, dismissive, or challenging, contributing to an internal reputation that diverged sharply from public perception. The truth gained broader visibility when former collaborators openly discussed their experiences in interviews and retrospectives. Their comments resurfaced across media platforms, prompting renewed attention shown to long-standing behind-the-scenes tensions. As more accounts emerged, the contrast between his celebrated public persona and the alleged conduct deepened. This shift led many viewers to reassess his legacy, concluding that the hidden conflicts and strained relationships had significantly shaped his career and public standing. 19. Katherine Heigl. Katherine Heigl crafted the image of a poised, thoughtful performer whose early success positioned her as a dependable romantic lead. Interviews portrayed her as articulate, principled, and deeply committed to elevating the quality of projects she joined. Her presence in popular films and television reinforced the idea of an actress with strong instincts and a clear sense of professionalism. To many viewers, she represented a rising figure with the potential for long-term mainstream appeal. That image began to fracture when public statements she made about past projects drew criticism from collaborators and audiences. Comments regarding scripts, roles, and working environments were interpreted by some as dismissive or ungrateful, creating a narrative that she was difficult to collaborate with behind the scenes. Additional reports from colleagues suggested patterns of strained communication and creative disagreements that contrasted with the image of a cooperative, grounded performer. The shift in perception accelerated when former co-workers discussed their experiences more openly. As these accounts resurfaced across media platforms, the gap between her public persona and the alleged behind-the-scenes behavior became a recurring topic. Viewers began reinterpreting her career trajectory through the lens of these stories, with many concluding that her reputation for being challenging to work with had contributed to a notable decline in professional opportunities. The resulting backlash made her one of the more debated figures of her era. Before continuing, comment below whether you think these behind-the-scenes conflicts were misunderstood or unavoidable in a competitive industry. 18. Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf initially cultivated the image of a passionate, instinct-driven actor who brought emotional depth and spontaneity to every role. His performances conveyed intensity and authenticity, and he was frequently praised for his commitment to artistic exploration. Early interviews highlighted his ambition, self-awareness, and interest in unconventional creative paths, reinforcing a public identity centered on raw talent and expressive storytelling. Many saw him as a performer unafraid of pushing boundaries. However, this image became complicated as allegations, legal issues, and public incidents surfaced over the years. Reports involving personal relationships, confrontations, and erratic behavior raised concerns about instability and harm. Former partners and collaborators came forward with accounts that contradicted the sensitive, introspective persona he presented publicly. These revelations prompted widespread discussions about accountability, responsibility, and the distinction between artistry and personal conduct. The turning point arrived when several individuals shared detailed statements describing their experiences, leading to legal filings and extensive media coverage. As these accounts circulated, public sentiment shifted from admiration to discomfort. Past public incidents were reinterpreted in light of the allegations, intensifying the scrutiny around his behavior. The gap between the performer audiences once praised and the person described in these reports reshaped his public standing, placing long-term uncertainty over his career and legacy. 17. Chrissy Teigen. Chrissy Teigen established herself as a candid public figure known for humor, openness, and relatability. Her social media presence portrayed her as approachable, unfiltered, and willing to share personal moments with honesty and vulnerability. This transparency drew a large audience that viewed her as refreshing in an industry often associated with carefully curated images. She became known for balancing industry visibility with the appearance of being grounded and self-aware. The narrative shifted when past messages she directed toward several individuals resurfaced, revealing exchanges that contradicted the empathetic persona she promoted. These communications, some described as harsh or inappropriate, raised questions about consistency between her public identity and her private interactions. As additional archived exchanges emerged, concerns grew over whether her online presence had included patterns of behavior unacknowledged at the time. Public criticism intensified once recipients of the messages spoke openly about their experiences, prompting widespread conversation about responsibility in digital spaces. Apologies and statements followed, yet the controversy continued to influence perception. Many viewers expressed disappointment, noting a disconnection between the image she cultivated and the actions revealed. The resulting backlash reshaped her reputation, making her one of the more polarizing figures associated with online influence. 16. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen built a public identity around confidence, sharp comedic timing, and the charisma of a seasoned performer. His long career in film and television positioned him as a reliable leading presence associated with humor, spontaneity, and effortless screen appeal. Audiences embraced him as a figure who balanced irreverence with professional talent, creating the impression of an actor who delivered consistent entertainment while maintaining a somewhat rebellious charm that seemed central to his persona. Behind this polished image was a long history of private turmoil marked by strained relationships, legal conflicts, and concerns about behavior that affected colleagues and production teams. Accounts from those who worked with him described unpredictable interactions and decisions that made professional environments difficult to navigate. These contradictions undermined the image of a confident professional, replacing it with a narrative of volatility that had been shielded from the public for years through carefully managed press and studio support. The truth surfaced when several incidents became public, and former partners shared detailed accounts of their experiences. Media coverage intensified as additional stories emerged, revealing patterns of conflict and instability that sharply contrasted with his on-screen appeal. Viewers began reassessing his career through a more critical lens, concluding that the public image had concealed deeper issues. The widening gap between the persona and the reality led to lasting backlash and transformed him into a figure associated more with controversy than talent. 15. Winona Ryder. Winona Ryder cultivated the image of a thoughtful, introspective performer whose roles often centered on vulnerability, emotional depth, and artistic nuance. Her presence in celebrated films reinforced the idea of a complex, intelligent actress, admired for subtlety and sincerity. Public appearances and interviews presented her as soft-spoken, perceptive, and deeply engaged with the creative process. To many fans, she symbolized authenticity in an industry known for artifice. This image was challenged when reports emerged about a high-profile legal case involving accusations of retail theft. The situation contrasted sharply with the grounded, sensitive persona she had presented throughout her career. Media attention focused on questions surrounding personal pressure, stress, and the unacknowledged struggles behind her public calm. The case sparked debate about whether external forces or personal decisions had led to the event, complicating the narrative of a performer who seemed distant from scandal. The shift in perception intensified once court proceedings became widely publicized. Coverage amplified the contrast between her respected artistic identity and the legal challenges she faced. While some viewers responded with empathy, others interpreted the incident as evidence of entitlement or hidden instability. The resulting scrutiny altered her public standing, creating a divide between longtime supporters and those who viewed the controversy as a revelation that undermined her carefully built reputation. What do you think? Comment below whether this moment was a temporary fall or a sign of deeper pressures within the industry. 14. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson spent years cultivating the image of a commanding leading man known for intensity, bravery, and emotional complexity. His roles often centered on heroic or morally driven characters, reinforcing a persona built on strength, conviction, and dramatic force. Interviews and public appearances supported the impression of a disciplined performer who balanced creativity with personal grounding. For a long period, he was regarded as one of the most influential figures in mainstream cinema. That image unraveled when recordings and reports surfaced, describing troubling outbursts, discriminatory remarks, and personal conflicts. These revelations challenged the long-standing perception of disciplined professionalism and raised concerns about conduct that had remained concealed behind his public persona. Accounts from former partners and colleagues added further complexity, suggesting patterns of behavior inconsistent with the controlled, heroic characters he often portrayed. The turning point came when audio recordings reached the public and viral discussions spread rapidly across media platforms. These materials painted a stark contrast to the dignified image associated with his earlier career. As reactions intensified, many viewers reassessed his legacy, noting how the hidden conduct had reshaped the narrative surrounding his body of work. The controversy produced long-term consequences, positioning him as one of the most divisive figures in modern Hollywood history. 13. Jared Leto. Jared Leto crafted the image of an intensely committed performer who pursued artistic transformation with discipline and purpose. His public persona emphasized dedication, experimentation, and a willingness to inhabit challenging roles. Whether promoting music or film projects, he presented himself as a visionary who prioritized creative authenticity. Many admirers viewed him as an enigmatic figure whose unconventional approach set him apart within the industry. However, reports from colleagues and fellow cast members suggested that aspects of his method blurred boundaries, creating discomfort on certain productions. Accounts of unconventional behavior, unsolicited interactions, and an unpredictable working style contrasted sharply with the controlled, intentional persona he projected. These stories generated questions about the difference between artistic commitment and conduct that may have crossed professional lines. Public perception began shifting as more individuals questioned the appropriateness of the techniques attributed to him. The situation escalated as numerous accounts circulated online, prompting discussions about power dynamics and respect within collaborative environments. When specific stories gained media attention, viewers revisited earlier roles and interviews through a more critical lens. The contrast between the polished artistic image and the behavior described by colleagues reshaped public sentiment. Many concluded that the divide between his public persona and his private conduct had contributed to his increasingly polarizing status in contemporary entertainment. 12. Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow established herself as a refined, elegant performer whose image centered on sophistication, wellness, and curated lifestyle ideals. Her public presence highlighted balanced health and mindful living, shaping the impression of someone deeply invested in personal improvement and holistic values. Interviews and promotional appearances reinforced her identity as a thoughtful, cultured figure who used her platform to share wellness-oriented ideas with a broad audience. Questions about this image arose when her wellness brand promoted products and claims that critics argued lacked scientific support. Analysts, medical professionals, and commentators voiced concerns regarding the accuracy of certain health-related assertions. These challenges contrasted with the persona of a responsible, informed advocate. The debate raised broader issues about influence credibility and the obligations of public figures who share health-related guidance. The contrast between her public persona and the controversies surrounding her brand became more pronounced as regulatory actions expert critiques and investigative reports emerged. Public discussions highlighted concerns about misinformation and the trust placed in celebrity-backed advice. As scrutiny grew, some viewers reassessed her legacy, concluding that the tension between her idealized image and the credibility issues surrounding her wellness claims had damaged her reputation and contributed to ongoing public skepticism. 11. Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe spent years cultivating the image of a strong, grounded leading man, associated with discipline, resilience, and dramatic intensity. His performances conveyed controlled power and emotional depth, reinforcing the public perception of a performer committed to excellence. Interviews framed him as thoughtful and serious about his craft, presenting a persona shaped around integrity and professional focus. Many viewers respected him as a commanding presence both on and off screen. Contradictions emerged as reports of confrontations, heated outbursts, and strained interactions with colleagues began to surface. Accounts of temper-related incidents painted a different picture from the calm, focused identity he projected publicly. These stories prompted discussions about the pressures of high-profile performance and the extent to which private conduct had been shielded from public view for years. The truth became widely known when several incidents received substantial media attention, accompanied by statements from those involved. As these stories circulated, viewers reconsidered the consistency of his public image. Many responded with disappointment, concluding that the disciplined persona had obscured ongoing personal conflicts. The growing number of accounts contributed to a lasting reassessment of his legacy, cementing him as a figure whose reputation became intertwined with controversy rather than solely with artistic achievement. 10. Amber Heard. Amber Heard cultivated the image of a poised, socially conscious performer committed to activism and humanitarian causes. Public appearances emphasized empathy, advocacy, and a sense of responsibility toward global issues, shaping the perception of a principled figure dedicated to meaningful work beyond the screen. Interviews reinforced this persona, presenting her as articulate, grounded, and driven by moral conviction. Many saw her as an emerging voice in conversations about justice and advocacy. This image encountered significant challenges as legal disputes involving her personal relationships became public. Allegations, counter-allegations, and conflicting accounts created a complex narrative that contrasted sharply with the composed, ethical persona she had projected. The situation raised questions about credibility, personal conduct, and the extent to which public storytelling had diverged from private reality. As more documents, recordings, and statements were released, public sentiment grew increasingly divided. The truth, as perceived by various segments of the public, shifted repeatedly during the highly publicized legal proceedings. Testimonies, cross-examinations, and media commentary painted competing portraits that fueled intense debate. For many viewers, the disconnect between her public identity and the information emerging from the courtroom became central to the controversy. The prolonged scrutiny transformed her into a polarizing figure with widespread criticism directed at the inconsistencies and perceived manipulation associated with the case. 9. Chris Brown. Chris Brown rose to prominence with the image of a gifted young performer whose charisma, dance ability, and musical talent positioned him as one of the most promising artists in contemporary music. His early career highlighted disciplined dedication and a commitment to craft that attracted a wide fan base. To many, he represented a rising figure capable of shaping modern pop and R&B culture through creativity and energy. This image changed dramatically when incidents involving violence and allegations from past relationships became widely known. Accounts detailing confrontations and legal conflicts contradicted the disciplined, controlled persona he projected as an artist. Reports from authorities and testimony from those involved introduced narratives of volatility that clashed with earlier perceptions of youthful talent and potential. Over time, additional stories surfaced regarding behavior that raised more concerns. The public response intensified when detailed records, photographs, and official statements reached widespread circulation. These materials solidified the contrast between his cultivated public image and the actions described in documented accounts. Many fans reconsidered their support as discussions about responsibility, rehabilitation, and accountability grew. The lingering scrutiny continues to shape how audiences view his legacy, with many perceiving him as a figure defined as much by controversy as talent. At this point in the countdown, comment below which revelations so far surprised you the most. 8. Kanye West. Kanye West crafted the image of an innovative cultural figure whose creativity, ambition, and artistic experimentation shaped entire movements in music and fashion. He presented himself as a boundary-pushing visionary committed to redefining artistic expression. Supporters admired his willingness to take risks, challenge norms, and introduce new ideas in public conversations about culture, identity, and creativity. The narrative shifted as years of public statements, controversies, and erratic behavior generated concern and criticism. Comments interpreted as discriminatory or hostile sharply contradicted the image of a forward-thinking pioneer rooted in inclusivity and artistic unity. The gap between his proclaimed ideals and his increasingly unpredictable public presence deepened, prompting questions about personal stability and the underlying motivations behind his actions. The turning point arrived when multiple interviews and social media posts circulated widely, drawing condemnation from political groups, entertainment figures, and longtime collaborators. These statements reshaped public opinion, intensifying scrutiny and distancing former supporters. The expanding record of controversial remarks made it difficult for audiences to reconcile the innovative artist with the person expressed in public forums. As a result, he became one of the most divisive cultural figures of the modern era, defined by a mixture of groundbreaking creativity and profound controversy. 7. Lindsay Lohan. Lindsay Lohan built her public image as a talented young performer whose early roles showcased natural charisma, emotional clarity, and remarkable screen presence. Audiences viewed her as a promising figure with the potential for a long, stable career. Interviews and appearances strengthened the impression of someone relatable, grounded, and capable of transitioning from child stardom to mature artistry. Many considered her a symbol of early success shaped by talent rather than manufactured publicity. This image began to unravel as legal issues, personal struggles, and reports of unpredictable behavior emerged over several years. Accounts described difficulties on set, missed commitments, and incidents involving substance-related challenges. These developments contrasted sharply with the steady professional persona she had cultivated earlier. As the challenges accumulated, the narrative shifted toward concerns about personal well-being and professional reliability, raising questions about the pressures she faced behind closed doors. The turning point came when multiple legal proceedings and public incidents received intense media coverage. Court appearances, official records, and statements from collaborators highlighted the widening gap between her early image and the reality of her circumstances. Public sentiment became divided, with some expressing sympathy and others criticizing the perceived pattern of instability. The scrutiny reshaped her reputation, leaving her seen as a cautionary example of a promising career derailed by hidden struggles and external pressures. 6. Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp long maintained the image of a mysterious, unconventional artist who prioritized creativity over celebrity. His career centered on roles that embraced eccentricity, depth, and emotional complexity. Public appearances reinforced the impression of a thoughtful, introspective performer who resisted traditional Hollywood expectations. Many admired him for his perceived authenticity and his refusal to conform to mainstream norms. This carefully shaped image was challenged when legal disputes involving his personal relationships became the focus of international attention. Allegations, counterclaims, and starkly different narratives from both sides revealed conflicts that diverged from his artistic persona. Accounts describing volatile exchanges and personal turmoil suggested a private life far removed from the composed, enigmatic figure he presented publicly. As more documents and recordings surfaced, the complexity of the situation intensified. The highly publicized trials transformed perception, with testimonies, evidence, and expert statements dominating media coverage for months. Viewers were exposed to conflicting interpretations that fueled global debate. The contrast between his celebrated on-screen identity and the intimate conflicts revealed in the courtroom reshaped public opinion. While supporters defended him, others questioned long-standing assumptions about his character. The controversy cemented his status as one of the most polarizing figures in recent Hollywood history. 5. Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill established an image rooted in humility, growth, and creative evolution. As his career progressed, he presented himself as a reflective artist committed to personal improvement, mental health awareness, and respectful collaboration. Interviews emphasized vulnerability, sensitivity, and a desire to redefine how audiences perceived him beyond comedic roles. His public persona conveyed empathy and emotional maturity, making him widely respected in artistic circles. This image faced scrutiny when private communications between him and a former partner became public. The messages revealed interactions interpreted by many as controlling, contradictory to the empathetic persona he projected. Discussions arose about boundaries, emotional dynamics, and the complexities of personal relationships. These revelations created tension between the public figure, admired for emotional insight, and the behaviors described in the shared content. Reaction escalated once the messages circulated widely across platforms, prompting extensive commentary from analysts, mental health professionals, and viewers. Many expressed disappointment at the apparent disparity between public statements about respect and the tone of the private exchanges. As debate intensified, the perception of authenticity surrounding his image diminished. The controversy left lasting questions about how personal conduct aligns with public messaging, making him one of the more debated figures in contemporary Hollywood. 4. Woody Allen. Woody Allen crafted the image of a cerebral, introspective filmmaker whose work centered on psychology, morality, and the complexity of human relationships. Critics praised his artistic sensitivity, and public appearances reinforced the idea of a quiet, intellectual figure focused on storytelling rather than celebrity. For decades, viewers associated him with thoughtful humor, emotional nuance, and a creative legacy deeply rooted in artistic introspection. This image became increasingly controversial as long-standing allegations involving his family resurfaced in public discourse. Statements from those involved presented deeply conflicting narratives, raising questions about personal conduct and unresolved issues. These accounts clashed sharply with the quiet intellectual persona he projected, creating a divide between supporters who emphasized his artistic achievements and critics who pointed to the gravity of the allegations. The situation became a central example of the tension between creative legacy and ethical scrutiny. Public perception shifted as documentaries, interviews, and investigative reports revisited the allegations in detail. Filmmakers, actors, and institutions distanced themselves from him, reflecting a growing discomfort with supporting his work. As discussions intensified, many viewers reevaluated his reputation, concluding that the unresolved controversies had irreversibly overshadowed his career. The disconnect between his artistic persona and the allegations contributed to his emergence as one of the most heavily criticized figures in modern cinema. 3. Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey spent years cultivating the image of a disciplined, masterful performer, known for emotional control, dramatic precision, and intellectual depth. His roles often portrayed authority, complexity, and moral ambiguity, reinforcing the perception of a performer with exceptional range and professionalism. Interviews and public appearances strengthened this identity, presenting him as articulate, thoughtful, and dedicated to his craft. This carefully maintained persona collapsed when multiple individuals came forward with detailed accounts alleging misconduct. The stories described encounters that contradicted the controlled, composed image he had projected for decades. These accounts sparked widespread concerns about patterns of behavior that had remained concealed in professional environments. As more individuals shared their experiences, the narrative shifted from admiration to profound scrutiny, altering public and industry perceptions. The revelations gained global attention when major institutions took formal action, removing him from projects and reevaluating past collaborations. Public statements from those involved, combined with extensive media coverage, highlighted a stark contrast between his celebrated career and the allegations. The resulting backlash was swift and severe, leading many to reconsider not only his work, but also the structures that had enabled his behavior to remain hidden. His legacy became defined not by artistic achievement, but by the controversy that engulfed him. 2. Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby built a public identity as a family-oriented entertainer whose work emphasized morality, education, and community values. His roles and public speaking engagements reinforced the image of a responsible, caring figure associated with trust and stability. For decades, audiences viewed him as a symbol of guidance, fatherhood, and humor deeply rooted in cultural influence. His reputation appeared firmly grounded in positive messaging and ethical conduct. This image was destroyed when numerous individuals came forward with detailed allegations describing disturbing encounters spanning many years. Their accounts sharply contradicted the wholesome persona he had constructed. As more stories surfaced, a pattern emerged that undermined the foundation of trust he had built with audiences. Legal proceedings, investigative reporting, and public testimony revealed complexities that had remained hidden behind his carefully crafted public identity. The truth became undeniable when legal judgments, survivor statements, and extensive media examination brought the allegations to the forefront. Institutions revoked honors, networks removed programming, and viewers reevaluated decades of work. Public sentiment shifted from admiration to condemnation, reflecting the magnitude of the divide between his public persona and the actions described. The controversy reshaped his legacy, making him one of the most widely criticized figures in entertainment history. 1. Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein spent decades cultivating the image of a powerful, influential producer who championed ambitious filmmaking and elevated emerging talent. His public persona emphasized cultural sophistication, artistic risk-taking, and a commitment to prestige cinema. Industry events portrayed him as a force behind numerous acclaimed projects, and many viewed him as a gatekeeper, whose decisions shaped entire eras of modern filmmaking. To the public, he appeared as a decisive, driven figure who helped define contemporary cinema. Behind this crafted image existed a long, hidden pattern of coercive behavior manipulation and exploitation within professional environments. Numerous individuals later described encounters that contradicted the cultivated vision of a dedicated patron of the arts. These accounts exposed the extent to which power imbalances, professional dependence, and controlled access created conditions that concealed misconduct for years. The divide between his respected public persona and the allegations revealed a system that enabled silence and avoidance rather than accountability. The truth came to light when investigative journalists published detailed reports supported by testimonies, documents, and records spanning many years. As dozens of individuals stepped forward, public reaction shifted from shock to broad condemnation. Legal proceedings, institutional severances, and widespread industry reform followed, reshaping discussions around conduct, consent, and accountability. He became a symbol of the concealed abuses within Hollywood, with his legacy defined entirely by the revelations that ultimately dismantled the public image he had constructed. Hollywood has always depended on illusions, but the stories behind these figures reveal how far those illusions can stretch before they collapse. Each of these reputations was built on crafted personas, controlled narratives, and a belief that certain truths could remain hidden indefinitely. Yet the moment those truths surfaced, the divide between image and reality became impossible to ignore. These cases show how easily admiration can shift into skepticism, and how quickly silence can turn into exposure once the right voices are heard. They also reveal the deeper systems that allowed damaging behavior to remain concealed for years, protected by influence, profit, and fear of disruption. As we close this countdown, comment which celebrity shocked you the most, and stay tuned for more examinations of the hidden stories behind Hollywood's carefully constructed world.